Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Communications from Pluto podcast. I'm your host, Nyx Nebula, and I am here with Frosta.
Hello.
Feel free to introduce yourself a bit, your Twitch name, any general info you'd like to give.
Yeah. So my name is ItsFrosta. I go by Frosta. I am an astral dragon that works on a rescue ranch that helps out lost, forgotten, and injured mythical creatures like Blossom that is right next to me. I do variety streams 3 times a week over on Twitch and YouTube. Mostly I stream video games, but I am slowly branching out into other things.
Nice. Nice. Yes, and I will have their Twitch linked down in the description below as well, so make sure to check them out. So yeah, today we're kind of just chatting and talking about what it means to work within your means and how to kind of do that. But first, I kind of want to start out with when and why did you start streaming?
So I grew up in the golden age of Let's Plays. So you have pre-controversy, PewDiePie, like Vanoss, those types of people. I grew up and watched them. I idolized them growing up because who wouldn't love to play video games for a living?
Right, yeah.
I never really got into it too much as I had other things that I wanted to do. But then sometime around COVID, I got a little bit more into it. About 2 years ago is when I got this model. This is Frosta. And I actually strapped down and actually gave streaming a good attempt at it. And it's been a little bit less than 2 years, but pretty close. Early spring of 2 years ago would have been when I started streaming.
Nice.
But as for why I started to do it, I enjoyed being able to share, quote unquote, the experience with people of playing games, especially if it was a game that I didn't really feel like I might enjoy. So being able to watch somebody else play the game and just being able to enjoy the game that way was nice, and I wanted to be able to provide that for other people.
Yeah, those are some great reasons. I know I as well, I also watched a lot of those Let's Players and everything growing up, and yeah, it's just cool to think about that would be so cool to do as a job. And I really also, a main reason why I watched them was because I didn't have any way to play games at the time. So I think your reason as well for streaming yourself is a great reason to share that experience with others.
Yeah.
So I know you kind of talked about already what kind of content you make, but and you were talking about branching out into some other content. If you don't mind, if it's not a secret, a surprise or anything, what kind of content are you kind of thinking about?
So I've already kind of started testing the waters a little bit with it. At the start of each of my streams, after the general waiting for pre-rolls to go and just chatting with chat a little bit to get the ball rolling, so you're not going right into the game, so that people can trickle in. I've started taking about 20 minutes of the stream and taking from a prompt list and doing art. I was lucky enough to get an old drawing tablet. Great, now the words leaving me. Lent to me by a friend, and so I've taken one drawing class, and that was in high school, which would have been over a decade ago. Not to date myself, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, no,
And
that's... Sorry, go ahead.
so like relearning like any of the basics I could even possibly remember from that, and just trying to show off like that type of stuff, like showing the journey that may happen.
Yeah, nice. I think it's always a great thing to try new things and expand your content. So what has been your experience so far with streaming? Like both the positives and the negatives.
So when I'm going to say most of this is in the context of when I sat down and streamed as Frosta, not any of the other random handles of like, oh yeah, I'll give it a try. You do it for like maybe a week or two, and then you're like, and fall off. I'm gonna do this in the context of what I've been doing for the past 2 years. When I first started out, I was told like networking, like that's how you grow. I was lucky enough to join a Discord group that had a bunch of up and coming VTubers. Some of them have gone on to do 3D model debuts. Some of them are like, they aren't like horribly popular, but as far as like starting from nothing, they've gotten pretty good sized.
Yeah, like mid-size creators and everything. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. So getting into it a little bit more, with the topic at hand here, what have you experienced and why are you like knowledgeable on working within your means when it comes to streaming?
So, context, I live out in the boonies. I live out in the country, which means that the internet providers, we have one internet provider out here.
Oh, wow.
So we are stuck with what they are able to provide to us, which for the longest time was at best like 1 megabyte up, which as most people who have like looked into streaming, you need at least 3 megabytes up, in order to have a strong connection for 720.
Yeah.
So trying to deal with that was an issue, and trying to figure out how best to navigate that. Coming into this with, I came into this, I never really watched like VShojo or any of the other big VTubers. I personally still don't, but it's not to knock on them, it's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch clips and shorts of them, of stuff like the interactions between Sea Dog and Iron Mouse are hilarious.
Yeah.
But I don't actively watch Iron Mouse.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting to at least get a glimpse of what some of those, bigger creators are doing. But I can totally understand like the just like it not being totally your thing and everything. I mean, a lot of people do prefer like smaller content creators, and like that's obviously a great thing for us, and so yeah, I mean it's yeah. But how do you work with what you are given, and what's the best way to go about it?
So for that, the best way is to look and see what you have. Do you have a PC that's able to run what you can run? What can your PC run? Like recently I've been running into issues of some of the higher end games tax my computer a little bit too much, so I can't run it at the best quality and also stream. So you have to do a little bit of compromise there. You have to be willing to like get your feet wet into to a few projects to be able to do some things. You won't always be able to have multiple windows. Like for PC, if it's limited, you can't have multiple windows open. You're gonna have to try and consolidate, figure out what you want to have your community to be able to interact with. Like for me, my bare minimum that I would need is I would want Mixita, which is how all of my redeems work, and my model. Everything else could go away because my redeems are how I interact with my chat. And like I could get rid of Twitch throwing system, I could get rid of my music, like I could get rid of all of those if I absolutely had to save space and that type of stuff, so that I could still interact with chat. Trying to find a nice happy medium there is you're gonna need to get your feet wet in a few things to try and do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's important to look at, what you have as far as like to like you mentioned earlier, your your internet speed, your upload and download. There is a website you can go to. I don't remember what it's called, but you can just type it into Google and look to see what you got going on there and everything. And yeah, it's important to look at what is taxing on your PC, because you don't want to overload it and everything. You can do that in Task Manager as well. See what's taking up the most resources and everything in there. Just literally in your PC, type in the search bar Task Manager and whatever, and just look at that. But yeah, it's definitely important to know your PC or laptop, whatever you're working off of, because if you don't know that, then you could do some damage to it on accident and everything. But yeah. I recently had some issues and everything with certain games being too heavy on my PC, especially while I was using, the 3D and everything. All of it together was just too much. And so for the next stream, then I pivoted and I switched to with playing that game. I used my 2D instead, and that ran a lot smoother. So yeah. But how do you manage being creative as a non-artistic VTuber, and how does that affect you and your content?
So, before I started branching out into drawing, as we talked about, I have almost no artistic capabilities. My brain is creative, my hands are not, is what I like to say. So, like, finding fun ways to get your chat to interact with you, like, Mix It Up has community boards that have people who have already made, like, redeems that can be used. Like, one that I use is when somebody subscribes, it shows up a nice little, like, key card badge type thing, like you would, like, from the movies for, like, security clearance. And it shows up one of those. It has your little profile picture, how long you've been like signed in and stuff, and it's completely free. Like one thing that, especially if you're a smaller creator, very much that you need to accept, and other people need to be willing to accept, is free is okay. It's okay to take free things with proper crediting, obviously, but free is okay. You're not any less of a content creator because you use a free background or a free asset. The table in front of me is free. I got it free off of Ko-Fi.
Yeah, that was just answered my next question of your view on free assets and models and everything, because I think it's really important, especially when you're first starting out, to take advantage of the free assets that are out there. Of course, because they are great resources, especially when you're starting out and you're not 100% sure if you'll like streaming even. You don't want to drop, $1,000 on a model and And yeah, I mean, Ko-Fi is a great resource and everything to use, as well as just you can find people posting stuff on Twitter. I use Booth as well. And yeah, you can find some great stuff out there for free, or there are as well things that you can find for at least decently cheap and everything. So yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. But
one last note on that. It's,
yeah.
make sure that you read the terms of service on it. But if they don't mention anything about not editing, you can color correct your backgrounds. Like the background behind me was originally red. My friend made it for me. Was originally like a reddish hue, but because we're in winter, I wanted like my backgrounds to be kind of a winterish color. So I just went in and just gave it a nice little blue filter. And there you go. You can use that for any number of things. Like if your color scheme that you want is orange, but everything you have is red, as long as it's okay to edit it in the terms of service for where you got it from, make it orange.
Yeah, that's a good point. 100%. Like I would have never even thought that that background and everything was red to begin with. It just looks I don't know, normal as blue and everything. So that's a great point, because I think it fits your color scheme very well and stuff. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that either. But as well, like on the same point as like managing being creative as a non-artistic VTuber, are there other ways that you find to be creative?
I run D&D, so my creative outlet for the most part is through D&D type stuff. There's creativity. You can dabble in improv. Improv is very good for content creators, because it allows you to not only be funny in the moment, but also be witty and just be able to talk on your feet too. Improv doesn't have to be all comedy. Being able to talk on your feet. So chat's a little bit quiet, but you still want to interact with them. Being able to talk on your feet and keeping a conversation going, even if nobody's talking with you, that's being just as creative as art, although it is in a different way. It's just a different form of creativity.
Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up, because I think a lot of people don't think about that, like art or being creative isn't necessarily like just the traditional like drawing, painting, everything. It's just general things like being able to talk and think on your feet and everything, which streamers kind of have to do a lot. I mean, when there is silence in chat for a bit, or if chat, changes the subject, something like that, you got to kind of go with it. And I think it's important to, it's interesting you bring that up, because it's, I think, very important. And a lot of streamers forget that it's important to talk a lot during streams, because if someone comes in to your stream and they're a first-time viewer, if you're not talking, they can't get to know you and everything, and it's hard, and they might not feel comfortable enough to jump into chat either and start talking, because they don't know who you are. They don't know if they're gonna vibe with you. They're looking for entertainment, and I think it's important to be able to give that to them, even if they're not currently in your stream chatting, and I do want to mention too, one thing that completely changed my view and my outlook on things, as far as like viewers and stuff. The viewer count isn't accurate on either Twitch or YouTube, like live streams, because it doesn't update every time a viewer comes in to your stream. It only updates, like, I believe, like every 5 minutes or so. Like, it's so you could have a new viewer in there and you don't even realize. So you should be like filling that space and everything, that silence, with talking, so that you can grab that viewer's attention before, you know, they decide to leave.
On that note, I keep it on just so that I have an idea as to how many people are in there, because if there is a slight difference between, since I'm a much smaller streamer, there is a large difference of like how much I need to be checking chat between if there's 3 people in watching me versus 10 people watching me, because the likelihood of people sending messages goes up. But for the most part, if you're just starting out, I would highly suggest turn off viewership count. Don't worry about it. Just just have it turned off and just act like you have a viewer the whole time.
Yeah, 100%. Especially like if you know that it affects your motivation and your just kind of confidence and everything, especially starting out. Yeah, I think it's good to turn that off. But yeah, I myself also keep my viewer count on, and I do, you know, look at that and I see that, even though I know it's not 100% accurate, and like I think that's important to keep in mind. Like, yeah, it definitely does help with like knowing like, oh, I should be checking chat more often and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, does I know you talked about this as well a little earlier, but does location limit your streaming abilities?
So, I'm gonna give a twofold answer to this. So your geographical location very much can. I live out in the boonies, so there are issues with internet issues that make it harder to do that. Depending on where you're at, if you're out in the Great Plains, it might just be hard to get internet in general, or it might be hard to get somewhere that will be able to give you the parts for you to be able to do your streaming, because not every town out in the middle of nowhere, Great Plains, is gonna have a Best Buy or a Micro Center. But the secondary part of this answer is who's living with you and what your living situation is. Because personally, I live with other people in my house, and my bedroom is across the hall from other people. They go to bed at a normal person's time. I do not. I stream when they're going to bed. I cannot have my desk in the same room, in that room, because of the fact that the sound will travel, waking them up. Some people don't have the ability like I do to be able to have their setup somewhere else in the house. So the issue is how do you get around if you can only stream at certain times, because that's when either people are out of the house, or people aren't going to bother you, or there's a bandwidth issue because the house is packed and everybody's on the internet. I used to have that issue as well. And like every little device connected to the internet adds up when you have not a lot of bandwidth to go around.
Right, yeah. And like, yeah, I think that's important to mention too, because like, yeah, not everyone has the same opportunities based on location, who they live with and everything. I mean, there might be people in the background, there might be kids, or pets even, that make noise in the background or something. And then, yeah, having to kind of living with someone, you also have to be mindful of them and their schedule as well. And
oh, you mean like the dogs that barked probably about 10 minutes ago?
yeah. I'm lucky and I've got a dog that like barely barks, but when she does bark, it's loud. But I think to the point of like that not everyone has like a store nearby that sells or specializes in technology type stuff, although obviously now with online shopping it's a little easier in some ways, but if you've got like some sort of like emergency, you need it like sooner rather than later, sometimes that's not possible to always get, and you'll have to kind of wait a few days and not be able to stream for a few days depending on the situation. And yeah, I think it's not only to the just out in the boonies and everything that has internet issues sometimes, but like on a different sort of in a different sort of way. Sometimes like if you live in like a big city or something, there can be a lot of power outages, all that kind of stuff. I think so there's kind of, there's positives and negatives to like everywhere. And I think it's location can definitely make a difference, as well as I didn't think of this before, but like storms and everything. If you live in an area that's very prone to big storms and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But then how can or does like money affect your content?
So when I was first starting out, I tried to do I was trying to make sure that I commissioned everything, which I 100% still agree that if you are able to get it commissioned, get it made specifically for you. But I very much am now a supporter of if it's available and it's free, utilize it. But money can definitely help one way or another. Being able to get a nice high-end model. There are some people who will watch you specifically for your model. Sometimes we don't want to talk about that, but unfortunately, like, there are some people who will watch you specifically for a model you might have, or will not watch you because of the type of model that you have. If it's like when PNG Plus was kind of starting to become popular, you had like the Gremlin PNG tubers that were happening, which I find that they are hilarious. But I could also see that there would probably be some people who don't know what a VTuber is and don't kind of get the funny of it, and it would be like, why are we doing this? But like being able to have funds for new games, because everybody wants to play the newest games. Like when content warning first came out, it was free when it first came out, and then you had to pay for it, but not everybody knew that it was free. And so then you have the issue of like, do I really want to pay money for this when we have something that's kind of like it in Lethal Company? Like, and then you have Lethal Company, which was huge when it first came out. And it's like, do I want to spend the money on this? Do I have the friends who also want to spend the money on this so that we can all play?
Right. Yeah. I think it's sorry. Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up, because both games and assets and everything, the models and all that all costs money, and there are ways to kind of like use those free assets or get free games. But unfortunately, when things are popular, you know, a lot of people want to watch that and everything. So it can sometimes be hard then to, you know, you want to lean into that, but also, you know, do you have the funds to be able to do that? And the other thing is with models specifically, you bring up some good points about like sometimes free models as well aren't quite as customizable, aren't, you know, quite as custom as what someone may want. And I think a VTuber's design can kind of give you an idea at least of what they're about and who they are. But I think it's important to remember too that someone's model, especially if they're using a free model, doesn't necessarily represent them and their content 100%, because they don't have the resources to commission. But I do agree, if you are able to commission, definitely support artists. You know, that is important, I think. You know, but it can. Another thing is too, with having a custom model, I feel like it can really make you feel more connected to your VTuber and everything, and kind of make you want to, you know, have that drive to stream a little more. I think that's, you know, something kind of a luxury that some people unfortunately aren't able to have.
Yeah, you get that dopamine rush of, I have something new, I want to show people. And then you have something that you are, even if you didn't, even if you're not the person who made the model, you are the person who came up with the idea behind the model.
Right.
And so it is still something that you can show off and you contributed to its making. And doubly so if you made it yourself from scratch, and you're an artist that made your own model, then it's something that you very much would want to show off.
Yeah. I know for myself, you know, making my 2D model, I definitely at the time was very, very proud of it and very like, oh, I really want to stream. I want to show this off and everything. Now at this point, you know, knowing a little more about the process of making a model, because my model was the first one I'd ever made. But now I'm like, I really want a 2.0, and I'm working on that, because I'm like, wow, I could have done better, and I know what to do now. Yeah.
You go from, I'm super proud of this, and then you start looking closer. It's like, oh, I could have done that better.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it really helps to kind of be kind of have that knowledge that like you've made it, and it's something you're proud of. Like a lot of even model artists that don't stream themselves, or that just do stream themselves but make other people's VTubers as well. Like they're called, you know, VTuber mamas and papas. Like they're very clearly like proud of that, you know, what they've made, and they 100% should be. You know, it's very it's very impressive and a lot of work. But yeah, I think previously though, you brought up the point kind of what I would call like pretty privilege in VTubing, which is unfortunately something that exists. You know, I personally like kind of made my model like not super sexualized and everything, for example, because I wanted to be judged on my personality, and like my entertainment skills and my content and everything. But I know that like, and not judging anyone for you know, having a more sexual model and stuff, or sexualized model, but that was just personally me. I'm not comfortable with that, I suppose. Just and myself and everything with, but I think that it can definitely, be a factor that draws people in. And it's kind of a little unfortunate for some of, for some of us and everything, but like some of us just don't want that or feel comfortable with that. And like that's okay too. I think either way is okay, but I think it is definitely something that we do have to at least recognize, so yeah.
Yeah. Like to bookend that part, don't compare your viewership to anybody else besides to anybody else, because I've seen that happen a couple of times with people that I follow and moderate for, especially like when the meteoric rise of Clover happened. Oh boy, did that start a fire for some people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about Clover or not.
I actually do not.
So Clover started over on TikTok. I believe that she goes by she. She did daily TikToks of her making a Highland cow like little VTuber model. And within a month she made partner.
Oh wow.
Which for some people, like, kudos to her. She worked her way up there. She did all of the work herself. She made the model and everything. The algorithm did the right thing for her. Like, nothing wrong to her, but it very much it definitely rubbed a few people the wrong way. Not so much because of her, but because it's just somebody suddenly went from just starting a month ago to suddenly being partner on Twitch. And a lot of people compare themselves to that and are like, why can't that be me? It's like, we don't know what the algorithm wants.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like, it is a struggle and it's definitely hard. I think like I know I've experienced it personally quite a bit of like, it's hard not to compare yourself to others and stuff, and ask yourself like, well, why isn't my content doing as well? Why am I not, but sometimes honestly, it truly is luck a lot of the times. Like, yes, it's hard work as well, but there are also a lot of VTubers, content creators in general that put in a ton of hard work, and it's just that algorithm doesn't pick them up, and like it's really unfortunate. It just works like that sometimes. I suppose it's it kind of has to be a combination of the two, and it's it's an unfortunate truth, but but getting away from that stuff a little bit and getting more into like some tech stuff, do you think, like, is it possible to stream, in your opinion, with like little technical knowledge?
So the short answer is Google and YouTube exist, but the long answer is yes. Or the short answer would be yes, YouTube and Google exist. But the longer answer is that there are plenty of people who are willing to help you out. I had an issue with OBS a couple weeks ago. I went into the forums on OBS, and so far I didn't post anything, but most of the forums I saw were people that were super helpful. And gave lots of information. As long as you are able to navigate some of the less flavorful parts of the internet, i.e. Reddit, you can find pretty good information in a lot of those places. Especially if you're looking for a specific question, they will usually have the answer in that type of stuff. um places like OBS and stuff are a little bit technical heavy, but that's because they're open source. But like Streamlabs, and while I don't use Streamlabs myself, I'm pretty sure it's a little bit more straightforward because it has its own built-in stuff.
Yeah.
The most technical thing is trying to make sure that your internet can handle it, and then lining everything up for your overlay that you want. Like putting like for myself, like putting all of my stuff onto the screen the way that I want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, Streamlabs, I've used both Streamlabs and OBS. I use OBS now and everything, but started out with Streamlabs, and Streamlabs is 100% like, more beginner friendly and everything. But I do, in my personal opinion, I like OBS better. It does, have a little bit of a learning curve, but I can't even explain why I like it better, to be honest. Maybe that's because I haven't used Streamlabs in a long time, but I do. But I think YouTube and just the Google, the internet in general are some great resources and stuff. Especially now there's a lot of how-to kind of things out there on VTubing. When it first started out, there definitely was not like as much, but now there's a lot of stuff out there. And I think one important thing too is that I want to mention, if you get an error code on something, I would recommend typing in the name of that like program into Google and then copying and pasting the error code into Google to try and see if like other people have gotten that same error code. Like sometimes you'll find nothing and it's like frustrating, but quite a few times I've done that and it's been very helpful. Another thing as well, I feel like I definitely didn't realize at first, and some other people may not realize, if you have an antivirus like software and everything, and you are using VTuber programs and like stuff like that aren't it may your antivirus may like catch that and everything and think that it's a malicious software or something like that, and it's doing its best and everything, but you may have to go in to your antivirus and select like I don't even know what the technical term is or what it's actually called, but just like basically select like, oh, this software is okay, like it run it, so that's another thing as well. I know I had that issue with Vroid Studio a couple of times, and also some games as well, even one that I downloaded from Steam, Stranova, which was a little confusing to me, but hey, whatever. But yeah, I think it's definitely important to use your resources, and it's 100% possible to stream, and that was 100% like that kind of led into my next question of is it possible to stream with little knowledge of streaming or experience with using streaming software. I think we kind of mostly touched on that, but I mean how about sorry, go ahead.
So I've got a little bit to add to that one. That question. If you're trying to save up for a model or something like that, then all you need is your voice, whatever you're using to capture it, a microphone, and whatever you're doing, like whatever it is that you are trying to do, or if you're just chatting. Before I was Frosta, I was a console gamer, and I used the built-in streaming on like Xbox. I used the built-in streaming, Yes, you can't put a model on there or anything like that, but it showed the game, it showed the overlays and stuff. You could go into Twitch still and like give it an overlay.
Yeah.
Too when you're doing stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, yeah, you don't have to start out with anything fancy, and honestly, I think it's best not to as well. Like, same with debuts and everything. Like, a lot of the time, in my opinion, you don't want to like do a debut. Just start streaming, because first of all, like, you don't even know 100%, even if you watch streamers, will you actually like streaming yourself? You know, you don't want to drop a bunch of money on all this expensive hardware and models, assets, whatever, and then realize like, oh, maybe this isn't for me, you know? And then as well, like, sorry, I lost it. My ADHD.
Go big or go home does not apply here.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I found it. On the whole debut thing, a lot of the times, unless you've really built up an audience through, like, you know, and you know that you'll have an audience because of Twitter or, you know, other social media and everything, and you've got people for sure that are going to be at your debut, a lot of the time doing a true debut can be a little discouraging when you're streaming to 0 viewers, you know? I think a lot of the time it's just best to just start out, and people will find you when they find you, and people will get to know you, and all that kind of stuff, because yeah, I mean, debuts too, like, can be, you know, a lot of people think they need to be flashy and expensive and all that kind of stuff too, and I know it's hard to see, like, you know, other VTubers do that, or especially like agency VTubers. But I think it's important to remember, like, especially with agency VTubers, not to compare yourselves to them, because they have a ton of money and resources behind them, you know, as well as already basically a built-in audience that'll, you know, subscribe before they've even streamed a single time.
Yeah. To go with that, I personally, I trickle my content. Like, I had a brand new outfit built for Christmas, for this model, and I was like, yep, we're gonna show it off on this stream, because I want to be able to use it as long as I can, because Christmas is right around the corner. You don't get very long to wear ugly Christmas sweaters.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's totally, like, you know, use whatever assets, you know, for as long as you can, because, like, yeah, just take advantage of the stuff, you know, the resources that you do have. I think that's important, definitely. As well with the whole thing on hardware limitations, I suppose we touched on that and talked about that as well. You used to stream on, you said, a PlayStation. That was kind of, I would consider, like, a hardware limitation, as PC is definitely, like, you know, generally better for, you know, doing streaming. I've never personally streamed on a console, but it sounds a little more complex to me, I suppose. But what does, like, streaming with hardware limitations, what does that involve and look like?
So we've touched on it a little bit already, but to go over the console, it was Xbox, but they're about the same. It was actually much more streamlined. Since all it would do is you would set it to, do you want to capture game and voice, and then you tell it what game you're capturing, and it would capture the game and capture your voice, and there you go. It was pretty simple, but I'm not sure how good of quality it did.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, I was having internet issues, so I don't know how good of quality it did. I don't know what type of delays it had.
Mhm.
I was still brand new to streaming, and so
Mhm.
that type of stuff like was completely over my head. But the hardware limitations, like we've talked about earlier, like whether or not your computer can handle something,
Mhm.
whether or not you have like the hardware to do something, like you want to do art.
Mhm.
Okay, you need one of three things. Either A, you're going to need to be okay with drawing via mouse.
Mhm.
B, you have to have a camera so you can do a hand cam for your
Mhm.
drawing.
Mhm.
Or C, you're gonna have to have some way to port your tablet's image onto OBS, which not everybody has a way to do that. So, or they don't feel comfortable like showing like their hands
Mhm.
on stream and that type of stuff. And so there's a limitation of I want to do art, but there's only so many ways that you can show off like the act of doing art,
Mhm.
at least over stream, as the easiest example that I can come up with. And then you have issues of like games not being able to run properly. Like
Mhm.
Final Fantasy 16 was the most recent one that I tried to run, and
Mhm.
oh boy, did it chug.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely like it sucks like, not having necessarily the, best top of the line hardware to be able to run everything. But yeah, I think you kind of gotta at some point like accept it and kind of just realize that like it also that you can always upgrade later as well, and you can always improve and learn things later to not only the quality of your content and everything, just as far as like what it looks like visually and the audio and everything, but also just learning things along the way of like, oh, this is what I should talk about, this is how I should interact with chat and everything. You learn those things along the way and everything, and you can always upgrade later. I know one thing too, since you're a PNG tuber, I'm not sure if what the reason is for that exactly, but I know a lot of people do that because of hardware limitations as well. They want to focus on their gameplay and everything, and their PC simply can't handle a 2D or 3D model as at the same time as a game is running.
I can answer that question. It was cheaper, and I also like gaming in the dark, which is not conducive to most modeling software. Usually the light that lights up my room is from my monitors, and that doesn't bode well for tracking.
Yeah, that's another thing that like for some reason didn't even cross my mind, because like for me, for example, with the 3D, especially with my full body tracking and everything, because it's through webcam and all that, I need like really good lighting. I usually use like I have like for my desk when I'm just using the hand tracking, I have a little like sun lamp kind of thing, and I also put my lights up to full brightness, and when I'm doing full body, I have like a ring light and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, lighting is another thing that can affect your VTuber model as well.
Yeah, and like this was also me just getting into it. Like we've talked about multiple times, I didn't know if I liked it, if I would like it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to commit to a for the model that I wanted to go for. I didn't want to drop $1,000 on a model that either A, I wouldn't like, or B, I'd dislike because of the amount of work that goes into upkeeping it, because you have hand tracking, you have puppeting you need to do, you have not to mention like the amount of the money that you need to drop on a decent webcam and making sure that everything works out together.
Yeah, definitely. That's also, I mean, just so many factors can go into, you know, what may limit you and everything as far as streaming. And like, I mean, when we started out with this topic and everything, I didn't even realize, I guess, fully, you know, when you brought up like, oh, like this is an idea of a topic we could talk about. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about all these kinds of things that could potentially limit, you know, streaming abilities, or like how, you know, you'd have to work within your means. And I mean, you know, the location, the money, the hardware, all that stuff. I mean, even we talked about lighting, like that's kind of crazy, you know, like that affects your ability to do certain things as a VTuber and a streamer.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's personal preference, but I'd rather not have to stare into a ring light while I'm streaming.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. That's yeah, I totally understand that. I'm just crazy. I'm sure my eyes will not thank me later. But yeah, so I think just wrapping up here, are there any pieces of advice you would like to give to VTubers or just content creators in general who are kind of struggling to work within their means?
So to hit on the main points that we went over, don't compare yourself to other streamers. Free is always okay. Give credit where credit's due. Just try, like, give it a shot. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Especially if it's something that's free, then no harm, no foul. That's also why I very much talk about wanting to do free, because if you get a free like Vroid model, you can try it out, give it a shot. If you don't like it, you spent no money.
Right.
All you lost was some time, which that's okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, just make sure that whatever you do, that you make sure it's something that you like. And that's about it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd just like to then kind of give you a chance, promote yourself then, and any special or fun things you have coming up as well. And I'll leave, of course, your links down in the description below. So again, please go check out Frosta. So yeah.
All right. So again, my name is ItsFrosta. That's ITS Frosta. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, as long as it's going to be there. Twitch. I don't really have any huge projects going on right now. I do plan on at the beginning of the year to try and start work on a PNG Plus, or at least start a commission on a PNG Plus, so a model update. But besides that, I don't have too much in the works as far as that type of stuff goes. And I'll leave you guys off with my normal sign off of you are loved and you are enough.
Oh, I love that. That is a great sign off. And good luck on your model update as well. I'm sure it'll turn out great. So
thank you.
Yeah, but to wrap things up then, like, comment, and subscribe. So yeah, I enjoy reading comments. I love reading and responding to them. So if you have any kind of thoughts, things you want to say and stuff, feel free to leave those in the comments. But other than that, again, Frosta's, the links are in the description below. And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.